Okay. Hi, everyone. Just give me a Y if you can hear me okay. Oh, there's a nice little turn up here tonight. Excellent. So let's start with the obvious. Who here is here for purely because of the just type me if you've come here purely because of the title of this masterclass. That basically the wealth attack is here. That you know that that's what's going on. Yep, there's lots of me's everywhere. So tonight, myself and Mr. Trent Chapman will be sharing about the coming wealth attack, the ultimate plan B, and why you really want to have what we call insurance. You want to have an insurance plan. An insurance plan isn't something because you're living by negativity. It's because in the same way you get car insurance and health insurance, and you hope like fuck you don't actually have to use your car insurance, like you don't want to crash your car to use it, or you don't want to get violently ill to use your health insurance. Likewise, you got a plan B. Type me if you really hope you're going to get violently sick and crash your car in the next week. We're joking. I'm just being facetious. Okay, Trent, maybe you just come on, mate. Because how's Trent this week? Before we start, why don't you jump on the camera, Trent, and just kind of let everyone know you're here and introduce.
Hey guys, hey Wazza, good to see you again,
Hey.
mate.
Yeah, you too,
Uh,
mate. How's things?
Mate, what a week. What a pretty big week. I think tonight is very appropriate what you've got lined up for the conversation. In the last week, we've obviously seen what's happened in Vietnam with bank accounts being closed down. The UK with the digital ID implementation, rolling in. I think US Congress is just going to be closed down from tomorrow. There's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
happening, mate. There's a lot happening. Queensland teams are winning AFL grand finals as well too. And mate, I think it's very appropriate for this conversation tonight. As I've said to you many times before, Warren, I've always felt that Q4 2025 was when the wealth attack would really begin. I think Q1 2026 is going to be a lot of chaos, a lot of distractions for those that aren't organized and aren't sorted. I think for those that are sorted, in my opinion, mate, I think it's going to be a lot of opportunities, crypto markets in particular, for those that are in crypto. So, mate, busy week, very busy week, but I
Mate,
think it's starting to become the norm at the moment. The amount of things that happen in the space of 7 days globally is really quite phenomenal.
I feel like I'm living lifetimes every week at the moment, isn't it? It's like we're living a different lifetime every week.
Mate, there's a lot going on, Technology moves faster than information, unfortunately, these days, and not all information is accurate information. But
Yeah.
one of the days when you can switch off, right? It's very difficult for any of us to switch off. So, mate, I think it's very appropriate. I'm definitely looking forward to learning a little bit more myself as you go through this tonight too, Warren, because as you're aware, for those that know me, know that I'm a very, very strong man of faith. I don't really live in fear in any way, shape, or form. But even myself, I'm executing another plan B as we speak. And it's not out of fear, it's just around about ensuring that I'm proactive so that if I don't ever have to be reactive and to ensure that I've got, multiple options, not just location for my physical self, but to ensure that I've got a couple of bucks in a few different jurisdictions as well. Vietnam has probably kind of put a bit of a rocket up myself, in all honesty, because I spend a lot of time in Asia, very much aware of what's happening over there. So yeah, mate, I think it's really appropriate tonight. So once again, guys, I'm grateful to be here. I'm happy to assist anyone if I can assist anyone. But let's learn from, as they call him, the Godfather, I think was.
Absolutely. And in fact, the ultimate plan B, I've always said the best plan B is the one where you waste your money. In other words, I hope every one of you is going to waste a lot of money with us. In other words, you're going to spend money with us that you don't actually end up getting anything out of because everything we're saying doesn't actually happen. It's like, I don't know about you, Trent, but when I waste my car insurance money every year, I feel pretty damn good. What about you?
Well, funny you say that, mate. I just paid $2,940 today for my car insurance for another 12 months and looked at it. Probably didn't really want to do it, but I'd much rather have that peace of mind, not to stress about that, mate. So
Peace of
very,
mind.
very ironic that you say that one, mate. But I'll leave it to you now, Was. I'll jump off and I'm happy to jump on
Done.
the back of the end, but I'll put
Yep.
myself in the learner seat as well too tonight. So thanks, mate.
Done. Thanks, Trent. Well, okay. So, look, it doesn't take an IQ higher than, much more than 50 to work out that Australia's civilization is collapsing and we're under a serious wealth attack right now. And at the end of the day, it's very simple. And as I would years ago, I can remember back in the 2000s when it all first started, I ended up being involved with a group of people because I had a serious health crisis and ended up I wasn't able to work, so I ended up spending all my time to avoid my chronic despondency about being sick all the time, to study everything I could about the world and getting involved in off the grid movements, meeting rebels to society who taught me how everything was going down. And by the time I finished, I was like, shit. Once I got better, I realized we're heading for a major wealth down and civilization collapse. And even Mr. Donald Trump back in the early 2000s. I mean, how many of you knew that he actually ran for government back in 2000? Say why if you actually knew that. But he actually ran for president back in 2000. See, virtually no one knows that. He ran back in 2000 in his own party called the Reform Party. And he was saying that kind of stuff. He was very concerned where America was heading. There was many, and I was giving events teaching about this stuff and talking about the civilization collapse that was pending for no other reason than it was inevitable. You can't continue to borrow money, print money out of your ass like the banks and the government are doing, and continue to drive cost of living and create a greater divide between the masses and the upper class without eventually causing a riot and a pushback. And religion can limit that because you can guilt trip the masses into not taking action, but eventually it implodes. And more than anything right now, every civilization collapse that's happened in history in The Sovereign Individual by Rees, Moggs and Davidson shows that the same thing happens every single time. Basically, eventually the smart money moves out and the masses collapse. That's a bit of a summary. Who here is what you call enjoying their life but nervous? Just type a Y. You're enjoying your life but nervous. Yeah, good. If you're nervous, it's healthy. There's certain times, being nervous. I was nervous early in COVID. I thought, shit, these buggers are going to try and vaccinate me against my will. They're going to try and coerce me into it. So I was taking action early. And it wasn't because I was like living in panic. I just thought, fuck, I'm not going to be coerced into a vaccine, Who here is actually, just type me if it's actually keeping you awake at night. Like you really genuinely are like, fuck, this is like really bad shit. Yeah, there's a few people giving a me. Yeah, look, understandably so. It's and this is where I'm hoping at the end of this webinar, I will shock you into taking action, but I'll also give you some peace of mind to see there's always a way through. Because this is a reality. We're facing something in Australia we haven't really faced before. We've had a charmed life, really. We've been like the gambler at the casino, but just keeps winning, even though we shouldn't. We're a charmed life. And what's happening is now we're catching up to what the rest of the world, many has faced for years, and we're facing really genuine threat to our liberties like never before. We are facing rising cost of living. We're facing the bleak middle class future, which is falling apart, completely collapsing and ending as we know it, so to speak. So this is basically what's happening. So things like that. So basically, this is the brutal reality that we're facing right now. I mean, and look, when governments are going to sit there and they're going to be going after people's money for no other reason, when governments don't want to be in poverty themselves, they're not going to sit there and go, okay, well, expenses have gone up. Let's drop our lifestyle and let's start living simple lives in motels. Governments are going to make sure they function and continue to go. And we're just going to continue to aim to take their wealth from the masses and from the people and basically the collapse of the middle class. And we're following the blueprint for civilization collapse in the same way Venezuela, in the same way as all these different places. And unfortunately, this is extremely objective, so to speak, and stuff like that. So, historic assault threshold super balances. So the death duties, this is something that's now being discussed as well, because part of communism is taking wealth from inheritance and openly discussed. So legacy is at risk like never before. So these are the realities that we're facing in Australia, things we've never had to face at this level before, and we're generally continuing to see more liberties taken. We've got a social digital ID pending. In the UK, Trent mentioned that. He mentioned about Vietnam, mentioned about America's shutdown. We're at war. Basically, we're at war for our liberties, our freedom, and our future as a country and things like that. So more than ever, You want to be strong, you want to be aware of what's going on, and you want to be taking action so your life can only get better. And the truth is, the positive in all that I'm saying to you is that for those who take action, life can get better. It really can. It's like when you get sick and you take action, you often end up better than you were before and feeling in better shape. So this is another thing that's happening. So ATO rates are increasing. There's articles about it in the paper. We sent some emails about this, just family trust and funds being targeted. People targeting foundations, offshore stuff, cracking down on director penalties now, not giving leeway on tax debts and interest and driving accountants mad, literally. Not being able to do company restructures when you're insolvent. See, look, this is happening more and more. And more than ever, you want to be protecting your money. And like I said to Trent today, generally, I haven't been quite this direct. And I just said to him and to my team, look, I'm just going to call it, because this is what I call a last trumpet call webinar in a way. And again, I'm not saying it's the last we'll ever do forever, but I do believe we're in the last phase before it's going to get more and more difficult to do much about it. I really do. And when I say, I'm not saying your life will fall apart and you'll live in a pond, but moving your money out, protecting your wealth for the future, if you don't take the action in the next little while, there's going to come a point at some stage, I don't know when governments will realize that the wealth drain is way too big and you're going to have to do something about it. And more likely than not, they'll just make it more difficult for people to do it. And then you'll have to kind of work within the system and try and find a way to negotiate and keep your lifestyle. So it's good to have your plan Bs, not because of any other reason and you hope that I'm wrong, but in the possible event that it really could go this way. And look, unfortunately, I think it's all fair to say that is the direction that we're heading as a society. Weirdly enough, those who know me knows I'll probably never be at so much peace, because when you face the ugly truth, life gets easy. Just like me, if you know what I'm saying. Like when you face a difficult truth, you actually feel a bit of peace because you know you've got to move your ass. You can't just sit there with a sense of impending doom that's basically flooding your soul. Yeah, good. Yeah, there's people taking action every day here. I mean, our calendars are booking out like no tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, which is good. It's showing me that people are taking action. And it's, at the end of the day, the majority of people won't. The majority of people will just pray and hope, so to speak. And the fact you're on here shows at least you're seriously thinking about not just praying and hoping. So all kinds of stuff happening. Investment strategy is under fire now. Because at the end of the day, this is going to happen, almost for certain. Boomers, Generation Zs, millennials are pissed off. They have grown up in a world different to ours. They hear the older generation saying, oh, you should just go and get yourself a job, or you should be like I did growing up. And basically, most boomers and most older people are just out of touch, because we kind of forget the fact that you could be on the shittiest, lowest paying job with a double income or even one income and a reasonable one, and you could buy a house. You might not be able to go and buy the Taj Mahal, but you could buy yourself a 2-bedroom flat. I can remember in Perth 25 years ago, you could buy 1-bedroom flats in Maylands for like $53,000, like 53 grand. You could buy one and it would pay for itself in rental income. Easy to get. Now, it's not, of course, if you got a $53,000 place, it would basically be a toy house in a ghetto, you know. So this is what we're dealing with now. So these are the things that Generation Zs, millennials are crying out for, and in a way, rightly so. They want to have a society where they can get ahead and have a chance to build a future, rather than have this sense of hopelessness, not seeing any real way out to have a new life and a better way of living. And the reality is that in society's history, and one of my clients once showed me the statistics and the facts, on average, every 90 years, a society that runs a debt economic system like ours has to reset, to basically flush out the shit and give it another start. And the last reset that happened in Australia and the US was in 1933 during the Great Depression. It's now been 92 years since the last reset. Now, keep in mind that generally it's around 90 years or less. So we're overdue for a reset now. And so I was saying to someone recently, they said, when's the timing? I said, I wouldn't have a clue, because my crystal ball's currently out of action. But I do know this. I said, I'd be very surprised if by 2030, if we haven't seen some kind of reset. In fact, and I said I would imagine it will be before. Just something that will kind of give the system a flush out to start again. And doesn't mean society will end. It just simply means that things are going to have to be flushed out to make it sustainable before everything falls apart. And again, I'm kind of painting all kinds of scenarios. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying what history shows tends to happen. And every now and again, things change from history. The main thing is you'd be silly to not at least have a plan B. But if you really see things going like COVID did, where it's going crazy and governments start talking about, conscription, or start talking about which they have already changed conscription laws in the last few years. I don't know if any of you know that, but they've changed them to broaden the ability for them to conscript people if they go into a war. Now, keeping in mind, in 2015, they changed the Biosecurity Act. 5 years later, they used it. So if you're doing that, there's every chance for expecting war by 2030 and to happen. So again, you just want to make sure you got plan B. It's not to be living there in constant terror where you're sitting there and needing to take medication all day, every minute. What I'm talking about is just seeing it going, oh shit, and having plan Bs in place, which is what I'm basically doing myself. And that's why I'm in Bali a lot. I'm getting myself set up. And this is unfortunately what the UK is doing, is where things are going. And it really does make me think, and I've said this years ago on a webinar on various ones, but I kind of sit there going like, far out, we've got basically in the Holy Bible years and years and years ago, we had this scripture in the Bible which basically said about the mark of the beast, this one here. So basically, I'm just going to get it up actually. So this is what it says here. And he calls all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, or free and slave, to receive a mark in their right hand or foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell unless he had the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Now, I was reading in the UK, the new digital ID, you won't be able to buy, sell, or work. Now, keeping in mind that you've already in Sweden, you've got thousands of people who are now microchipping the IDs into their hands, and they're going and using it for everything. So basically, in 2020, during COVID, if you go online and check, the Gates Corporation registered a patent for a cryptocurrency to basically lock individuals into the cloud. And the idea was so people have a financial system which they could access through their hand and their chipping, and also so they could be connected to the cloud. Now, I'll tell you now why people will do it. It's not just for that reason. Eventually, they're going to offer where they can heal mental health, Parkinson's, everything, by simply uploading programs into the cloud, which you can download through your app, through your body. That's the kind of things I think we could end up seeing. And I know it's crazy, but if I'd said this 5 years ago, I think I would have been looked at, or 6 years ago, you'd have been like, okay, Woz, you've really lost the plot, dude. Yeah, nice to have known you were out of here. But just type of why, if you agree with me, that's actually quite feasible, considering it's already happening right now. Just type of why if you think what I'm saying is actually relatively feasible. I'm not saying it's going to happen like that. I'll be honest, I'd be surprised if it doesn't in most of the world. I'll be surprised. I do think there's going to be a way out, and I'll be sharing more about that. Not everywhere in the world will do that, but parts of the world will do that, and many will sign up for it. And keeping in mind that what this says, it doesn't say it will be forced on you. It's kind of saying that you can't buy or sell without it. In other words, it's a bit like what happened in COVID. They said, hey, you don't need to get vaccinated. I mean, we're not going to make you do that. We'd never do that to you. But, you can't go to the movies, you can't sing, you can't do shit. You have to go and do this and go and do that, and you can't travel and you can't do this if you get it. And you can't go into these shops and shit like that. So I'm pretty sure that you'll see something similar. So the main thing is to start your planning, to set your life up to be ready and making sure that you've got backdrops ready to go and you're testing the waters. And I can assure you there's a way through when you're taking action. When the Russia-Ukraine war started, the people who'd taken action just were out of life, living in Bali, living a better life than they'd ever lived before in their life. Like Russians, I'm here in Bali, you meet them everywhere, living life, loving it. Because in Russia right now, you can't even ring WhatsApp. I don't know if anyone knows this, but if you're Russian, you can't call a Westerner and they can't call them on WhatsApp, Instagram, Telegram anymore because Putin says we don't trust them. And now for you to ring Russia or to ring you, We've got to go on Putin's Max Russia app, which basically gives government full surveillance tracking of your phone. So it's basically a way to force people to do it. Just type of me if you didn't know that. That's what Russia's done 4 weeks ago. Because I mean, I can't call my Russian contacts anymore, which is really annoying. So crazy shit's happening, everyone. And you just want to see the writing on the wall and don't sit there like a deer in headlights. Just go, okay. In COVID, those who move quickly were okay. And I can assure you, those who move quickly, you're going to be fine. Your life's going to get better. You're going to look back and think, fuck, you know, I'm glad I took action. And you're going to love me and Trent more than you've ever loved anyone in your life. Well, hopefully anyway. But this isn't random. It's a coordinated wealth redistribution plan, and you're the guinea pig, basically. Governments want to centralize wealth. And one of the things a great mentor taught me, Steve Pettit, who's involved, for those of you who do Plan B, a good chance at some stage you will meet Stephen Pettit. He's like my right-hand dude with this kind of stuff. And he knows a lot about this sort of stuff. So basically, there's 5 things that generally you want to have with your Plan B. You want to have a passport somewhere. So you got what's called your domicile, your basic domicile. So generally like Australia, but then you might have a passport and legal identity. And that might be somewhere else, like goodness knows where, like Paraguay, St. Kitts, where you pay taxes. And again, Australia is certainly going to be giving a very large, healthy donation to the wonderful government that we have. Or basically you might choose a more favourable jurisdiction that's a bit nicer to you and is pleased to have you and happy to kind of give you a bit of break. It's interesting. I have actually many clients even doing Plan Cs now, and I'm actually got a Plan C, and I won't overwhelm you too much about, but I'm looking at Florida as a Plan C. I don't know if you know about Florida, but the libertarian nature of what DeSantis has brought in there, it's completely like slash taxes in Florida. Entrepreneurs are literally flooding in there, living amazing lives, paying fuck all taxes, and welcomed in there where their values being recognized. And this is what's going to happen. The sovereign individual predicts that there'll be a mass exodus as people will go to where they're more valued. It's like if you're in a relationship, you're treated like shit, eventually you're going to go where you're more valued. And that's the prediction. Already in Bali here, they're gearing up for a mass refugee exodus from Australia. That was the words I was given yesterday. I was down looking at properties are all around Bali because there's people are buying property like tomorrow and the land's running out. And they're all saying we're getting ready for a mass exodus of Australian refugees. This were the exact words they told me. Already people are buying up in Lombok, for example, and I'm connected with the people there. People are buying in various spots and you can get property for significantly lower than you can get in Australia. So rather than buying a property for, like a jack shit property for $1 million or whatever, you can buy like a property for 100, 200, 300 and get returns of 15% per annum rental. That's the kind of stuff that's happening here. And in places like Thailand, because there's countries here, you've got a government that are keen to open the door up for expats. So they're actually talking with my friends and they talk with others. So what can we do? How can we make Bali better for Westerners? There'll be things we can improve. So in other words, they're countries that want you. They want your business. They want to have you there with them. And there's lots of them and they want to welcome you. There's places right now changing their residency laws to welcome people like you, to welcome people around the world. And it's just that when you're growing up in Australia, you're so used to it that it's hard to see what really exists outside there. But I can promise you, there is an amazing world with 200 and something countries out there. And there's many of them right now, which are waiting for you and are happy to welcome you, whether it's structuring yourself, whether it's giving you ways to earn income, whether it's giving you tax holidays. There's even right now a major Western country but is giving a tax holiday for 4 years for people to go there, okay? Not for the citizens who live there. And that's the one benefit of immigration absurdity that's going on. But the fact that the governments decide to treat the immigrants better than their own citizens. You'll get a better result at going to another country than often you will in yourself. I tell many Australians, if you go to New Zealand, US, you're going to get better tax results and treatment than staying in Australia. I'm saying to many New Zealanders, you'll do better in Australia because we offer things for foreigners. So the main thing I'm saying is to flip the switch of your mind and start to see that if you're willing to open up and consider new possibilities. And you can even come somewhere like Bali with, even with the more increased prices to the more Westernism, you can live here comfortably for 4,000 to 5,000 a month. You can live here quite comfortably, 5,000 a month. Who here thinks you could make 5,000 a month and live okay in Bali? Who makes enough money to be here? Just type a Y. Again, I'm not saying to do it tomorrow. I just want to open your mind. Now, what you're seeing in Australia, it's absurd and it's absolute fucking bullshit, you know? And again, someone said it's destroyed Bali. Yeah, look, unfortunately, this is what happens. You know, things do get wrecked and stuff like that. And it can be frustrating as well for the locals. And they are working over here in Bali to keep certain parts preserved and stuff like that. But the reality is people are moving to these places and things like that. So where you store wealth, where you spend time. So we always, in our plan B, take people through these 5 flags to make sure that you really think everything that you're actually doing, you know? And Benjamin says, already living in Thailand, 3 years, 5K goes a long way, 100%. I've got a very wealthy client in Koh Samui who was saying to me, Warren, you got to come and check this out, man. He goes, I have like literally world-class beaches and paying jack shit. And so now I'm like, great, well, you just complicated my life. Now I've got to go to Koh Samui. But that's beside the point. So there's so many possibilities. It's like buying a car. The only problem you've got is a very wide range of choices and people that are happy to have your business. I can remember the first time I flew into Hong Kong many, many years ago to open my first bank account. And I remember thinking, China, Hong Kong, you know, it's kind of dodgy. And I couldn't believe it, eh? I walked in and I felt like I'd entered a Sultan's palace. I'm in HSBC. I'm served like a carafe, like a beautiful crystal carafe of drink. I'm welcomed through. I sit for an hour and a half with the banker. He wants to get to know me. He's asking me questions, wants to know about my business, because he said, we want to help your business and work with you as a bank. We want to build a partnership with you, not just take you as a customer. I got an account and never looked back, you know? And there's many countries like that. You got Dubai that says, hey, we're going to give you tax-free if you don't earn your money from here because we want your business. You've got like some kits going, hey, we want your business. We're welcoming you. You've even got Thailand who were going to tax expats and said, nah, fuck it, expats, we're going to look after you. We're going to make sure we keep you in our good books. So you're going to keep our economy doing really, really well. So just keeping in mind that what's happening in Australia is a start for a better opportunity for many of you. And you don't, and as one of my Australian friends who lives here now, he said to me, Australia is a great place to visit. He said, but I wouldn't want to live there anymore. He said, it's not safe like it used to be. It's not the same place, but he said, I love living there. He said, I'm grateful for Australia. He said, I still love it for what it's given me. And sadly, he said, it's not what it was. He said, I've sold out most of my properties. I've got out of here and I'm now making way more money, way better rental returns, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month passive income on properties. And I'm happy here. And he said, and I visit Australia regularly. He said, I just don't want to live there anymore because I don't want to be paying 40, 50% for the privilege of doing it. I was talking with a lady owning a wellness center over here who was actually keen to open up a stem cells wellness center in Australia. And she said, I couldn't do it. She said, I gave up. She said, the regulation was absurd. She goes, I've come to Bali. I've opened up this wellness center and I was there getting IV drips and paying about 1/5 of the price in Australia to get full vitamin infusion and IV drips into me. And then discovering stem cells for like 1/5 of the price you get anywhere else. And she's saying to me, I make great money. I've got a government that will work with me with compliance. And she goes, I don't want a JV partner forcing me to pay 40% because that's what the government are doing. And so, and if you choose to live in Australia, I mean, that's how it works, okay? Now, keeping in mind, that's why we did a 5-part series. This one today is very targeted towards offshore, and there's 2 reasons why you want to have an offshore plan B. The number one reason is not tax. Let me stress that. The number one reason is not tax. It's jurisdictional protection. So let me sink in. It just means that if the shit hits the fan in Australia, you've got something offshore. If social credits locks you out of your bank accounts, if you find an AI agent, handing you appeals and rejecting it so you can't access your money, you have got access overseas. You've got shit overseas as your plan B. So that's the number one 80% reason why you want to do a plan B. The 20% reason is for some of you who are like, hey, maybe as well as a plan B, why don't I at least explore the possibility of looking into a country that might value me a little bit more? And, things have changed. Like Panama, someone's asked if that's still good. The short answer is it used to be amazing in Panama. I was there in 2018. Panama isn't as good now because the IRS are up their asses, and now they've got rid of their $5,000 visa. You got to buy a house there before they'll give you a visa. But don't worry, there's been plenty of others pop up, plenty of others. You've had Paraguay, you've had Mexico, there's many, many. So this is why I always say to people, you got your 4 strategic pathways, so to speak, which I'll be emphasizing. One way is you do what most people do. And hopefully that if you're on this webinar, listening to me waffle like this, you're not in that category of you do nothing and you live in hope. That's what I call the hope and pray strategy. The eat, pray, love Julia Roberts strategy. You just literally sit there and hope that nothing actually goes wrong and just do what the masses do and bury your head in the sand and talk about the conspiracies at the barbecue. That's number A. Number B is that you stay in the restructure and you go, you know what? Look, Warren, I mean, this offshore shit just does my head in, but at least I'm going to make an effort to improve my Australian protection. So although I know I'm at great risk, I'll at least make it harder for the buggers to get my wealth. So if you're not going to basically do anything else, at least do that. That was why we covered the last few weeks' teachings. Number 3 is you go, okay, Warren, I've got my Australian stuff in place, but fuck this. I do want to have an offshore plan B. I do want to have one of those. I want a safety net. I want an insurance policy on my wealth. And the 4th one is where you go, you know what? I want to at least have a look into some playgrounds. I want to have a look at a global citizen. I want to maybe explore the possibility of at least looking at countries that really want me and to be excited to have me in there. And for me, I like what I love about Bali is the little things. Australia, 9 months ago, I decided I was going to get a motorbike, okay, because I love motorbikes. And I go, okay, I'm going to get one. And they said, oh, you got to get a 6-month learner's permit. I said, what do you mean? I've got like a driver's license. I can ride them. Yeah, but you got to get one. Well, can I at least just do 10 hours and then go? No, you got to wait 6 months. I'm like, why the fuck for? Oh, no, that's the rules. And then there's this insane learner's permit test. And I'm like, this is just too hard. Bali, I get here, I just go and I pay money and I show them my driver's license, hire a bike, and I'm off and riding. And I get pulled up, and I meet the cops at the lights, they're smiling at me. Even at the other day, was on the beach and it was quite rough, and a cop came up to me and I thought, oh dear, I'm in trouble. And he actually shook my hand and he said, welcome to our country, sir. He said, just letting you know, it's very rough out there today, very rough. And he said, you can swim there, but just don't go out too fast, sir. We want you to be safe. We don't want any accidents in our country. And I just said, thank you. I said, thank you for caring about me. And he goes, of course, sir. Have a good day. And I thought, I like it. I like it. I was in Thailand some years ago, and just type here if you know what Songkran is. Just type me if you know what Songkran. I mean, it's basically a water fight in the name of a god, okay? Songkran. And literally, they had a huge water fight, and I was there, and even everyone was spraying the cops and putting ice down their backs, and the cops were laughing. And I said to someone, you'd be in handcuffs if you started putting ice down cops back in Australia. And it just made me really realize how crazy things actually are. And someone said, wasn't Bali worse for the COVID vaccines? Look, you're not going to get a utopia country, okay? Bali, it's knowing how to go. Like, I would not basically, if a big pandemic broke out in Bali, I wouldn't be living in the center of Denpasar. I'd be out in the regional areas where they tended to leave you alone more, And I'm not saying even Bali's the answer. I mean, have a look at Thailand, and that was quite strict. Go and have a look at Paraguay, Mexico. Again, the whole point is you look at a country, you weigh up the pros and cons and make a decision. I'm not recommending one country because you've got to find somewhere you like living. For me, I like Bali because it's 3 hours from Australia, from Perth. I like the lifestyle. I like hot weather. I like simplicity and things like that. So these are the ways to go. And the reality is we really are in deep shit. I'm just going to be blunt, and I haven't been this direct before, but we're really in deep shit. And there's so many reasons I could tell you I could keep you here for the rest of your night and you'd fall asleep listening to me, but I'll try and keep it simple. And the number one reason is when a country loses its cultural heritage, whatever that is, you're in shit. I mean, Dubai, like it or disagree with it, they've got a clear heritage. If you go to Qatar, you know, you have the prayer. I can remember sitting there at the airport, and then suddenly in the middle of the day, they'd have this music and this prayer, and everyone would stop and start, I'm praying. Now, I'm not a Muslim, and I don't sit there doing this stuff, but I respected it, and I go, okay, cool. You know, I'm in Qatar, I'll go along with it. The point is they've got a culture. And if I go into Qatar and I say, hey, you know, I'm a pride dude with my rainbow and you guys are morons, I would be in jail and probably, you know, eating like bugs off the ground before I could blink, you know. And the point I'm making is that a country prospers when you've got your own culture and your own heritage. Just type of why if you would happily walk into Dubai holding a pride flag telling the government to fuck off. Just anyone that would do that? As you can see, I'm in a bit of a playful mood. Oh, the answer is an obvious no. I mean, you wouldn't even think about it, would you? Not even remotely, because the country's got a value. But we don't have one in Australia anymore. Like once upon a time, we really did have a culture. I can remember when the government would say, it said in the 1980s, "Oh, we're going to pass a new, number, a new identity number." The churches pushed back, like en masse, because they had a Christian heritage in Australia. Like, no, you're not going to do that because churches, you generally have a strong faith. I grew up in a missionary church and my cousins, like still to this day, are badasses. You know, they go into Cambodia and change things. One of them's in Rwanda doing incredible things. You know, I'm really lucky. I've got these amazing cousins who are just modern day Jason Bournes who do so much good in these other countries. So they always taught me to stand for what was right. And my uncle would always say, you never sit there and let evil triumph in the country. You push back. You say, fuck this, I'm going to take it on. So I was fortunate enough. I can remember when they did that, the churches called everyone to action and they hastily scrapped it. And I could give you countless examples of when governments tried to do bad shit and they got stopped. Even in Victoria, 20 years ago, they actually passed these appalling hate speech laws and started targeting the churches. And one of my friends in Melbourne, Danny Nalaya, who had actually grown up in a communist country, Sri Lanka, where they tried to kill him 3 times, and it's always those people who pushed back, just simply said straight out, I'm not obeying your laws, you can take it. And was taken to court, and you can read about him, and he ended up beating them and forcing the Victorian government to to change the laws and go away humiliated. Because the churches pushed back and said, we're not going to sit there and put up with this shit. And what people don't know about Florida, and I almost guarantee that few of you would know this, when the COVID vaccines mandates first happened, Florida actually came out full on and hit mandates on the churches. And the pastors just said straight out, they've overstepped their authority. They're against the Constitution, against Almighty God. And one of the main pastors, Rodney Howard-Brown, said nobody tells the house of God, a man of God, to shut his church down, stop praying. So he said, we honour the government, but you've overstepped your authority. He said to the church goes on as normal. Everyone, please ignore the government mandates. And so, of course, they arrested him and various pastors. And they just said, don't worry about us. They said, we'll be fine. Just please keep going and pushing back. Do not let these guys take our liberties. Within a matter of weeks, they reversed the mandates. They hastily apologised. And just like that, Florida became the beacon of the free. The Santos got onto the bandwagon and, you know, rode the wave and basically led Florida now into a more libertarian state. Just type a Y if you did not know that. Like if you really had no idea that was what happened in Florida. Because most people don't know this. People like Trump's Homeland Security lady, Kristi Noem, like one of my favourite female politicians in the world. That's what she did in South Dakota. She got straight up and said, there's no mandates for South Dakota. They don't apply here. She said, just be kind to each other. And then when Biden said he was going to basically come in and force the federal employees to get vaccinated in South Dakota, she just said to South Dakota, we're going to rally the National Guard, and if Biden comes in, take up arms and drive him out. So they never went in. In other words, you had a strong Christian faith that honoured its rights to push back. You know, we don't have, and I emphasise, we don't have a Bill of Rights, which makes it hard. We at least have a constitution for Almighty God, but we've lost the Christian heritage. Again, I'm not saying Christianity is perfect. Don't get me wrong. I love Buddhism. I really do. Some of you, there's a few of you here I've noticed who are in my Bhagavad Gita, where I taught some of the deep truths of the Bhagavad Gita. So I just like religious stuff. I think it's great. But the Christian heritage is what we were based on, and it's a good one. It gives us a moral identity. And because of that, we are vulnerable for takeover, really vulnerable, okay? And that's why we're heading this path inevitably. And we just need to understand it and things like that. So that's kind of what I've been saying for years. I was running activism workshops back in the 2006. I was at the Hyatt Hotel. I was running stuff back in, those first 10 years of that decade. I was doing stuff in the 2012 and beating governments, got myself on the internet for it. And I can still remember, I actually got a friendly visit, and actually I'm not being facetious, by the police. I had a coffee with them and we were laughing. And the guy did say to me, he goes, just so you know, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop you winning. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, look, I'm really sorry. I'm embarrassed to tell you. But he said, you basically, you can't keep doing this because it mucks our system up. And that was it. Never won another case, got out of law and did this kind of stuff, So the point I'm making is that, I'm completely telling you 100 million% truth there. That's what happened. So at the end of the day, this is what we're dealing with, okay? We're dealing with an erosion. We're dealing with this stuff. And it's just seeing what's happening and taking action. Who here, knowing what you know now, would have taken action earlier in COVID to protect your situation? Just type a Y. If you knew what you knew now, you would have moved quicker and earlier. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. Okay. So learn from that and do that now. That's what I'm saying. Learn and do it now. Take action while it's still early and it's still easy to do so, okay? So you really want to have your insurance in the same way you've got car, you've got your health, not because you hope you get sick, not because you hope, but you want to protect your livelihood. Just type me if you know that if you found out you're going to lose all your wealth, you would freak the fuck out. Just type me. You'd lost it all. You couldn't access it anymore. So you want to have your backup plan Bs. You really do, everyone. And again, I really hope you'll waste your money and are pissed off at me in 5 years' time. That would be great. So this is my favorite quote. Plan for what is difficult while it is easy, and basically for what is great while it's small. That was my mantra in COVID. I can remember early on when I was arguing with friends. I said, I'm telling you, they're going to go. I said this in 2020 in May, and some of you were here know that. I said, they're going to coerce you to get your vaccines. They're going to try and muzzle you up. And I said, I'm telling you, I'm right on this one. And this one, it's just unfortunately human nature, okay? So right now, it's still easy. It's still easy. 12 months, I've been actually asking people, because I like credible evidence. I don't like to speak out of my ass with this stuff. And everyone I've met in higher level circles all say, some say 9 months, some say 18, the majority say around 12 months. So that's what I'm going with, okay? I think if this time next year you still haven't done anything, it's going to be harder than it is now. And again, who knows? Maybe you'll still be able to do it. So it's one reason we're offering a wealth check, which we're going to share with you at the end to help you take some action if you want to do it. Now, keep in mind, poor old Trent, I've ruined his life because his calendar just exploded. Anyway, he's very kindly agreed to continue having his life messed up to help people. More details to be discussed later on that one. But this is the reality. Time is running out. Requirements are getting stricter. Governments are coming harder. And at the end of the day, I remember what a very successful friend of mine said to me during COVID. When we were discussing, he says to me, but he said, Woz, let's be honest. And, my best friends call me Woz or Blackie. He goes, Woz, let's be honest. He said, let's just say that we had the power to control the system and we knew we could crash the whole thing, buy up cheap and then become rich and own the world. Do you think we would probably do it or at least be tempted? I said, probably. I said, yeah, I'd like to say sanctimonious wouldn't, but he goes, yeah. He goes, of course you're going to do it, And if people are dumb enough to kind of listen to the shit that comes out, I used to have what I call my Swiss chalet metaphor. I honestly believe that Soros, Gates, and most of the COVID elites sat there taking bets over a $10,000 bottle of wine on who could bring in a sillier law and what the people would accept. That was my thing. And it just got sillier and sillier, okay? And what you got to realize, though, is as that's happening, opportunities get better because wealth doesn't disappear. And I know this sounds cliche, but it really doesn't, everyone. Wealth just transfers. My life is getting better every month. I'm telling you, my life's never been this good. It really isn't. That's why I'm doing this stuff. Life would be awful if I get myself out and I'm not doing something to make a difference. I like to think, but I'm not just wasting space on the planet. I really like doing this. I like helping people. I get excited when I do because it just feels good to make a difference. I'm sure many of you know it. And life gets good. That's why I'm doing this. And many of you, as you take action, you can then help your friends. You can empower your friends, and you just don't know. You could end up mitigating the effect in Australia if enough people wake up. It's not impossible, you know. The main thing is never just assume it's for someone else and you can wait. It's not the time to wait. As they once said in my Pentecostal church, tonight is the night of salvation, not tomorrow. And the smart money's already out of here. They're gone, okay? I would say anyone I know who's high net worth clients, they've gone. They've already done this, okay? They've done it. 2015, we were talking about it. They're in Singapore. They're in Dubai. They've got wealth offshore. I was sitting here. I met a couple of major famous influencers who you'd know. I was hanging out with them. And I got shit because I said innocently, I was hanging out with them in the hot tub having a chat. And my friend just lost it and said, "You are hanging out with two guys in the hot tub." I said, "Don't go there, guys." But anyway, we were chatting away in the hot tub talking about it. And they're all saying, "Yeah, no, we've long moved our wealth offshore." They said, "We love Australia and we like being here, but we've moved our wealth offshore." Who thinks I've got an atrocious sense of humour? Type a Y. Well, everyone. I am. I get. Rebecca, it's sexy. Rebecca, you get extra service. Anyone that calls me sexy or my humour sexy, you get extra treatment. So there you go. Better service. So the smart money is already moving, and you really don't want to be the dumb at money. And look, the reality is, people are really fucking stupid. Let's face it. I was saying this to my friend over here. I was saying, the stupidity of people just boggles my mind. Like I said, supposedly intelligent people. You just don't want to be one of those people. You want to be someone who's got your brain switched on and you're still using it. And you really do. The reality is, if you want to look at statistics, and those of you know me, my best score I ever got at uni was in statistics. I got like ridiculously good marks. I do sports betting occasionally on statistics. I live my life on statistics. I even chose my last partner based on statistics because, as I see it, marriage is a gamble, and I got it right because I use stats. Everything is stats. I make really good cash betting on elections because I just do statistical calcs and work out who's going to win. I said to people weeks before Trump was going to win by a landslide because statistics showed me that, and data which I got up. My father, David Black, was Australia's top political analyst on TV for years and taught me to do it. And so I love statistics. And the statistics right now show the Gen Zs and the millennial are taking over the voting in Australia. And basically, by 2029, you can rest assured they will control the voting. And you can rest assured that if they're living in a world where they can't get access to buying a home and having a future, they will be screaming to take your money off you in a reset and give them a chance. And the government that says they'll do it will get in. And just common sense says that to me. That's not anything other than common sense because I don't just get statistics. I talk to people. I do my own data. And everyone I'm speaking to, the majority, admit when I probe them, they go, honestly, I think the best thing that could happen, because they blame you. They blame you who've got money. Now, we all know it's not your fault. We all know the government has just lost its mind. But when you can't pick on a big enemy, you pick on the smaller enemy. That's why we're going to pick on you, not because you deserve it, because you really don't, but because you're an easy target, okay? So right now, you want to be hearing these words and knowing this is where it's heading. Just type a yes in the chat if you know that I'm right, or you think there's a pretty decent chance I'm right, because who knows? I mean, 6 angels might appear from the sky and change everything, and then that could happen, you know? I'm not sure what it will, but it could. So the voting power is changing. They don't like the fact you got properties and they don't. French Revolution happened in rights. They don't like the fact that you got your super. They don't like the fact you get your tax breaks. I go on Facebook a lot and I go on groups and I look at trolls and what people are doing. And I saw a Facebook ad about a company showing how you could minimize taxes and go offshore. And most of the comments were trashing the shit out of him, literally, saying, "You fucking scoundrels, you're taking money." Most of it was saying that. And I thought, that's why I don't do Facebook ads on this stuff anymore. For that reason, I only talk to people I know that really will listen to me, and I don't talk about this on a big scale for that reason. The reality is the masses don't want this; they want your money. So 65%, under 40, 35%, your influence is diminishing. It's going down. I'm telling you. And that means that basically the dumb vote is going to determine who gets in. The vote that wants to know your welfare check, know who's going to take your assets, and give you a big fuck you. That's kind of what it is. And history unfortunately shows it. That's a quote which I read the other day. So it's mainstream now. Mainstream. And basically you just have to look at history. This is, by the way, what I did in COVID. I went back over history. I actually studied every pandemic back to the bubonic plague in the 13th century. I found, without fail, every single pandemic there was mandates. I found every single pandemic the mandates never lasted longer than 6 to 9 months in terms of for vaccine mandates. So I remember when they really hit hard, I remember saying to people around about April to June 2022, they're going to all end. And I was right, just simply because I went by stats. That's the beauty of history, everyone. You got the lessons waiting for you in history if you're willing to listen. The Great Depression and how it happened, there's similarities now. Venezuela was destroyed. I was actually in Panama when it happened in 2018 and saw the refugees flood in there. Argentina, Cyprus seizing money, Greek, they seized pensions in 2016. Zimbabwe collapsed. I can remember one of my close friends from school, his family fled Zimbabwe and they kept denying it because in the end, when they had a group of soldiers in apartheid, coloured soldiers, and they killed some people on the bus, but let them go, they fled. By that time, you were only allowed to take minimal money out of the country, so they left literally with nothing as a rich family to start again. So again, I'm not necessarily saying it will get that bad, but I like what one of my favourite authors, Lee Child, Jack Reacher. Don't know if any of you know Jack Reacher. I'm a big fan of his series. He says, plan for the best. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Yeah, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So Germany, life savings couldn't buy bread, middle class eliminated. That's why Hitler came up. When governments target wealth, it collapses because people honestly believe socialism will fix it, not realizing all that's happening is the wealth centralizes into a more inefficient group than anything else. So will we have pure communism in Australia? I don't think we will. Vladimir Putin's Russia is what I call the new communism. He's smart enough to realize that governments know jack shit about business. So what he does is he has oligarchs who he gives favor, provided they submit to his dictatorship, they get blessed and prosper. So that's where it's going to head. An oligarchical communistic society is where we're moving towards now, and things like that. And Aidan says in Germany, basically, people would steal the wheelbarrow and leave the cash or whatever else. So what keeps you awake at night? Wealth heavily taxed, aggressive ATO tactics, and things like that. Retirement savings erosion through new taxation. And so the main thing is to take the action to restructure your affairs. What are the kind of things that you want to be doing? So you want to be getting your structure sorted out. If nothing else, you want to start at least getting a plan B. And a plan B, to not overwhelm you, does not mean you go and run away and do a whole lot of shit tomorrow. It can be as simple as booking in, having a meeting, and knowing what options you have, which right now you may not. So right now you might know, Warren, I don't even know where to start. I just know that I've got a trust or two, I've got this. I just want to know, how do I set myself up in corporate entities? What's my options? I mean, we might go, great, well, here's some options, and we'd share with you about our white tier, grey tier, black tier system, where we'd say you got your white tier jurisdictions that are accepted like Australia, America, you got your grey tier like Hong Kong, Singapore, which is still really good, and your black tier like Panama, Seychelles, which are considered blacklisted, but are really great for privacy. And then when you can work out a strategy to work out what's right for you. And in your case, it may be as simple as, let's just get you started by at least learning about offshore, deciding that you might have one for wealth protection and nothing else. Not for tax minimization, because if you're an Australian, As a general rule, offshore won't do much for your taxes unless it's a very unusual situation. We might look at things like jurisdictional protection. What do I mean by that? So in the same way that you spread your wealth across multiple investment classes, like between cash, shares, precious metals, cryptos, property, you might go, I'm going to have some jurisdictional protection. So rather than have all my gold in Australia, in case they seize gold like they did in the 1930s, I'm going to have some gold overseas. And then you might say, Warren, are there options overseas? There actually are, yeah. Number of places, better than Australia. You can fly into the vault, you can look at them and even treat the gold like a bank. You can borrow on your gold, you can lend on your gold, everything. Who finds that really cool, by the way? You can actually borrow on your gold and lend on it like the old days with banking. They've actually banks overseas that do this right now. There's banks overseas that will give you better returns on annuities and income than you'll ever get in Australia. They're out there. They're out there. The world is a good place out there. There's precious metals, there's international banking, there's cryptocurrency. I mean, there's even jurisdictions that are starting to get more friendly on cryptos. You might have some wealth sitting offshore. You might even decide, like some clients go offshore, they set up a little vault and they put some money offshore. Just something different, just something in the event of a plan B. Legacy planning. You might want to sit down there and go, how can I protect my wealth? There's actually, for example, things you can do like bloodline wills, which means wills that make it very difficult for the government to get your wealth and in the States, and for you to lose your wealth in divorces if something happens to you with your kids, say for spouses or anything like that. So you can use like things like Hong Kong companies. Hong Kong is a great jurisdiction. I mentioned that. Singapore is really good. If you ever go into a Singaporean bank, that's even next level from Hong Kong. I find like some of the banks there are incredible. And for people who get nervous about Hong Kong and China, I say, China may not have the greatest rights and freedoms for their citizens, but rest assured, they value the wealth that's in there. They value their money. I find you get the royal carpet when you're dealing with like Hong Kong and anything which China's involved, because the last thing Chinese want to do is piss off trillions of dollars of money from foreign people. It will literally just about destroy their country because they got a lot of dependence on that. So in other words, the whole point is knowing the game, everyone, and knowing what to do, so to speak. Protection is no longer optional, it's survival. And so this is why I've already shared the following options that you've got. Option one is not do anything, okay? And I really hope none of you are doing that because this is what awaits you. Retirement savings, property loss, audits, future wealth. In other words, you're vulnerable. You're living in hope and pray mode. You really just hope the government doesn't come after you. As COVID knows, that's what happens, you know, just like that. Number two is you can actually stay put in Australia, just stay put. In other words, but you at least go, Warren, I'm going to improve my current affairs. I'm going to put like maybe make sure, for example, that your business and investment are completely separate. We've already spoken about that in the previous webinar, you know, we went into that one. So if you want to know more about that, go and watch the second masterclass, especially. Also the first one, we do talk about this a little bit, but just basically have a bit of a look at that one, so to speak. One of the things I'll show you quickly here is that you might just do something as really simple as this. I'm just going to show you a diagram actually, so just let me a sec. So yeah, like you might just, if you got, and this is a general rule, you have structures for your trust, business structures for your investments, okay? That's the other option. Option three is what we've just been talking about, mainly this thing. You have an offshore plan B, but stay put. Maintaining Australian resident while establishing structures. Set up your plan B. You get things in place. Look at alternate jurisdictions, foreign entities, banking, for example, and you want to have experts who know what they're doing. You might get an Air Wallets account or wires in an overseas company just as a backup. There's many things you can do, gold and silver. Or option four is you just go, you know what, I'm going to become a global citizen. And there's places, Thailand and Bali, with the right visa agent, it's pretty easy to get yourself a decent visa. It really is. If places like Paraguay, they're welcoming people right now in Paraguay and Mexico for fuck all to go and become a resident if you like the Latino. One of my My website designer who I work with, he's now in Mexico. I helped him go there. He's the happiest man on planet Earth. Reckons the best thing he ever did in his life. He said paying virtually no tax, living there legally, loving his life. You know, and there's so many options. I'm just giving you a sneak preview. There's like many more. Places that won't hit you with punitive, asset protection, Australian regulatory, and opportunities unavailable domestically, and things like that. Yeah, I just gave you the example of my website guy and things like that. And what are some examples here? You know, this is Singapore. As just one example for you. 0% capital gains. 0% income tax for foreign investors like you on foreign income outside of Singapore, and 15% or 17% for locals. I mean, how good? Hong Kong's very similar. It's just 15%, same deal, no tax on non-Hong Kong income. So they have a very small government because they don't have many taxes to buy. 10-year renewable residency, personal income, capital gains, inheritance, tax-free. You can build wealth. Florida's similar. And the fact is, you can really, over the next 3 to 6 months, make a lot of inroads if you take some kind of action to put these things in place. So there's so much you can do, you know, so much you can do when you implement the timeline. Don't worry, I know everyone, I'm a little bit over time, but I'm ready for questions, I can assure you. I'm in the last 2 minutes. But some of these cost comparisons for doing nothing, the difference it can actually make to your wealth as an example. So basically where this can go. So hang on. So a global citizen, you manage to keep a lot more of your wealth. And if you do nothing, it can, this is what happens to your taxes, the yellow one. This is what happens to your wealth, comparatively, relatively speaking, up the taxes and costs. So your next steps would be what we're going to be offering you today is just getting a session, evaluate and implement, okay? Whether you do it with us or whatever, you just get on with it. Book a session, evaluate where you stand and then implement your strategies. So book, evaluate, implement. What are the common mistakes that people make? You wait too long and things change, laws change. Complex structures take time to understand. Single jurisdiction diversification across multiple locations essential, okay? You know, common mistakes and things like that. The main thing too is we don't do anything that's remotely dodgy for the simple fact I'm sitting up here doing a webinar publicly to a lot of people. I'm not going to sit here and do dodgy stuff because I'm basically saying, welcoming the government to come over and audit the heck out of me. So we don't do anything that's not really clean. I have better things to do than be arguing with governments and trying to protect myself from getting in trouble. So the threat is imminent and needs action. Okay, I think you would agree. So who here would agree that basically it is ready to take action? Just type a Y if you're ready to take some kind of action or already taking it in your life. Hopefully many of you. I know I told a lot. My main thing was I really wanted to show and open people's minds up to what you could potentially do. Great. It's good to see you doing it. Please feel free to ask questions for the next couple of minutes before we go through and show you how you can take action. And then I'll get Trent up in about 2 minutes. Luke, I brought your call for 8 months ago and I've done nothing. I'm kicking my own ass. Well, that's okay, Luke. Still got time. Main thing is to start now. No big deal. Time spent in regret is wasted unless it makes you move, and you kick your ass hard and you move faster. That's all you got to do. But yes, people generally do. You generally regret not taking action when you need to. That's one thing I've learned in life. And believe you me, I've got some shocking stories of doing that myself. Cyrus, good question. Is there a way to protect your super in these strategies? Look, super's harder. The short answer is it's possible, but there are things you can do, but it's harder with super. You know, I do know some good super people that we work with, but it's harder. But the short answer is you can within limits. Yeah, look, you can make it better than it is right now. There are things you can do to at least make it harder. I mean, one of the best things, this is why the more wealthy you get and having offshore wealth, the better it gets. Is silver bullion still a good option in Singapore for offshore gold, silver, crypto? Well, look, yeah, they're one of two companies that we connect with, Ryan, and because yeah, I mean they were very much involved with the protesters and they're a very solid licensed company, so we do like them. Dejana, are your structures avoiding digital ID? I cancel my company directorship to avoid ID demand. Yeah, look, the answer is yes and no. Generally, we give people the option. There are ways, but you make it harder for yourself. I prefer to do hiding in plain sight strategies when it comes to that. I try and I mean, there's ways to use a digital ID, but limit what you connect to it so your wealth remains safe. You know, that's something we can explore. Sally, is it correct that once out of Australia for 2 years you can no longer have a self-managed fund and we have to convert to an industry fund? Yeah, look, if you leave Australia as a general rule, you can't have a self-managed fund. You have to find an alternate way. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to shut it down, but you may have to change things around considerably. So you do have to talk to your accountant about that if you become a non-resident. They change the laws on that, unfortunately, so you may have to go industry or, you know, something else. Someone asked places in Europe for flags, just residency. Yeah, look, it changes from time to time. Europe, I mean, Portugal was always good, but it's not the same. My general rule is that there's many places you can go. The best thing is that the more that you go somewhere that's not your basic home, it's easier. And the reason why is every one of you who lives in Australia, everything that you do has been tracked since you were born or pretty close to it. If you go to, say, Bali or Croatia or somewhere, they don't know much about you. So you can set your affairs up offshore in a really good way that will limit your tax regardless. But yes, there are options in Europe. But yeah, look, generally anywhere other than your home country, if you know what you're doing, you're going to do better. That's the rule of thumb. Cheryl, is it possible for paid advice to set up a plan B and not buy the course? 100%. Yeah, if you're talking about just get advice and guidance from Stephen, the expert, 100%, Cheryl. Yes, we do that as well. You don't have to watch the videos or the course or things like that. Luke, I currently set all investments up an investment trust under the umbrella of discretionary. Is this what you assist with? Look, absolutely. That's what I call the option 2, where you improve your existing Australian structures. Remember the 4 options. Option 1 was do nothing and hope it blows over. Option 2 is improve your Australian situation. We help with that. Number 3 was do an offshore plan B. We can help with that. Option 4, you become a global citizen, and I'm connected with someone who can help you do that. So, okay, a few more questions beforehand. We're doing ID in Bali, not at this time, but I'm aware of, but they may do. Thailand, I'm not sure. I don't think so, although, look, most of these countries are doing it. It's going to be hard to escape it. I'll be straight with everyone. It's going to be hard to find a utopian, but again, I emphasize the rule of thumb. Anywhere other than your home country, it's going to be a bit easier for you because they don't have the history on you. And that's my basic rule. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm going to, because we've gone over time already, these are your 3 choices, and I'm going to open this up for Trent. So Trent, can you maybe come on and just share the wealth tech that you've kindly offered to do for people to help people basically, basically do a plan B?
Thanks, Wazza. So I'll just quickly just give a bit of a sum up for you, was like first and foremost, mate, appreciate your authenticity and speaking very direct. I know sometimes you hold back, but I absolutely agree with everything Warren said. It's a matter of history repeats itself, guys. And I really encourage people to go back and just look at history. It's almost like the snake that eats itself, right? It rinses and repeats itself over and over and over. And once you understand this, then you can work with it. Warren's mentioned a few times I've noticed on this on these series around about the sovereign individual. If you haven't read The Sovereign Individual, I highly recommend that you pick up that book and that you do read it because you will become very aware that now is not the time to get comfortable. But also, it's the evolution stage that we're in. To really live that sovereign life, well, you have to look international. Like the world is your oyster at the end of the day, and that's really what you have to do. You have to step into it. I also very much agree around about the faith-based countries. I like to spend my time in faith-based countries. It's very different when you're around faith-based. And I absolutely agree with Warren in regards to where Australia has gone wrong is we have lost the faith, which means we are losing the consciousness. And until that really changes, I don't see Australia getting a better place. A lot of people wake up, but they don't clean up. You know, they don't show up, they don't grow up. And that's really where a lot of people are in this country at the moment. So it's good that you've woken up, make sure you clean up. And now it's, you know, at that stage where you've got to show up. With that said, there is a couple of appointments. I just opened a couple of more appointments today with the team. So there's a few more 45-minute consults, free consults. If anyone wants to jump in on that, then make yourself welcome. I'll get Warren to share the link. I've also just opened some Saturdays. And another thing, I just speak for myself on this one in here. And, you know, Warren likes to work a lot more than what I do. I'll be very honest in that scenario. And the truth of the matter is, even for us on the other end that help implement these things, it's far harder. There's far more energy that we have to put in to get things done. There's time delays on certain things that were never there. It gets very exhausting. So I can put my hand on my heart and say that, you know, in 12 months, I definitely won't be around in this space because it just won't be possible. The energy in for the energy out just will not be there. Now, I do have wealth checks on a Saturday which are available. They're 997, as Warren's got up on the screen here. They go for, you know, 90 minutes to 2 hours. It's where I can draw you a mud map right out. I can show you your options. I can even tell you what the costings would be to do that as well too. I'll give you
Oh,
multiple
but you
avenues.
got the special offer. Remember, we got the special offer as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you've got that there. Good on you, was I? Looking after people. So you've got the special offer there where you get 50% off on that. So for 497, I will spend 90 minutes. It usually goes closer to 2 hours, but 90 minutes to 2 hours. I can hear your concerns. I can look at where you are. I can draw a mud map of what your structure is at the moment. And I would make my suggestions on what I would do if I was in your situation. Now, just last thing for me before I wrap that up, guys. And again, it's probably just to back some of Warren's authenticity tonight that I don't have children. I don't have a partner. I don't really have any real big responsibilities, but my purposes in life. And I myself am most certainly very aware. I wouldn't say that I'm worried, but I'm very aware. And I don't have those extra responsibilities. So if you're people that have those extra responsibilities and there are people around you that look to you, that you are the king of the castle or the queen of the castle, then now, you know, absolutely is the time. And I'm not saying that from a fear base. I would much rather be spending my Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays living in my beautiful beach here in Byron, but willing to help any of those people. So if you would like a 90-minute wealth check, I think there's only a handful of the 45-minute ones left the rest of the year, but there is a 90-minute wealth check, and I've opened those up available from two Saturdays. So not this Saturday, the next Saturday, but the following Saturday from there. And I can probably only do 2 or 3 people a day because, as you could imagine, my brain gets stretched pretty hard when I meet people for the first time, see where they're at, understand it. Because this is really mindset, guys. It's a game. Create a web, play in the game, play with the jurisdictions, ensure that you can sleep easy at night. So everyone's a little bit different, but please, if anything I'm saying sings out to you, you want to have a chat, well, Warren can steer you in that direction right now. But thank you for your time, guys. I appreciate it. I know it takes a little bit of your time of an evening, and I'm sure you've all prioritized it. So that's all from me from tonight. So thank you for participation and thank you for your authenticity, Warren. And that's it from me.
Brilliant. So this is the wealth check, basically. So what would happen is that I've given the link in here, okay? So this is the link for you to sign up. And you just got to put VIP in the promo code to get the special price, okay? What you would do is that once you do that, now keep in mind they really are booking out. I'm not just saying that. We are booking out like absolutely feral on these wealth checks. Some of you are already working with us, so that's fine. But those of you who are not, just type a Y if you are going to be definitely booking in for something with us. I'm getting a few people saying they're booking in, but just we want to get a bit of an idea. Yeah, a few of you. Okay. Yeah, because like I said, it's gonna. I have a feeling after this week we're going to be out of spots for quite a few months. So yeah, we just kind of want to. And once we've done that, unfortunately, we haven't got AI to the point yet where we can, you know, clone Trent and myself as yet, which I really wish I could clone myself. I'm sure the world probably doesn't, but I would like to. So yep, and those of you who've already booked in, a few of you have mentioned that and just wondering. So yep, you just email us and you should have received a link to book in. If you haven't, just email support at globalwealthclub.com and we will make sure that you get yourself booked in. And like I said, it's a limited offer. We're specifically doing it and things like that. So basically $497, that's a special deal. I've already mentioned the VIP promo code a few times. It's just VIP. That's the promo code and go from there. So look, thank you very much. And thank you for coming today. I really, really appreciate you listening to us. We've got one more happening next week. That will be our Securing Your Future. That will be a little bit more positive and talking about the amazing wealth opportunities that are going to exist and how you can take action to really make sure you set your financial future up and have an amazing future and destiny ahead for the rest of your days. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for coming. Thank you for your faith and your trust in us. And bye for now.